What's going on, everybody? Welcome into another edition here of Mean Streets, presented by So Rare, right here live on Game Plus Network, also live on our FTN Network YouTube page, listening on iTunes and Spotify. We appreciate the support. Love hanging out with you here, even though it is not Monday, it is Wednesday, but it does feel like a Monday because we're officially back. We've taken a few days off here of Mean Streets. Hopefully, everybody had a fantastic Canada Day, July 4th. Now we're into July. It is go time. It is fantasy football draft season. It is here. I took part in the Independence Day Invitational on Monday over at Sirius XM Fantasy with my guy Howard Bender. I want to give him a shout out as well. RotoBuzz guy who we had on last year to recap the draft. Looking forward to chopping it up with him in the future. It'll just be me riding solo here with you today. If you have any questions, any comments, by all means, leave them in the comment section. If you're watching on Game Plus Network, you can always hop on over, leave them in the comment section. Always circling back on these videos, listening on iTunes or Spotify. You can, again, hop on over, reach out at Chris Meaney, Mean Streets, FTN at gmail.com. Smash the like button. Do encourage the questions. Not only does it help other people out, I think, listening or watching the show, but it also gives us a few things to talk about as well. Today, we will go over the Independence Day Invitational Draft, which, by the way, you start not one, but two tight ends. Yes, Travis Kelce went first overall in this draft. So it's a little bit of a different feel because not a lot of people are playing with two tight ends in your home league. Certainly, I'm not playing with two tight ends. I really like playing one of them, but you got to play two. You got to get yourself a couple tight ends. We could walk through the strategy, tight end premium strategy, rostering two tight ends. I'm going to walk through a couple teams, mine for sure, but also walk through, there was a couple teams that went heavy wide receiver to start, heavy running back to start. Believe it or not, I was not heavy wide receiver to start. I got a little bit more of a balanced attack here, a little bit of a balanced approach, but I will show you guys my team in the first 8 rounds and then the last 8 rounds. And we'll just try to show you guys where some of the value, again, it's really, really early. Something I talked to Jake about on All in Football, which again, you can catch on Game Plus Network. We had an episode this morning where we just talked about a few players and we had a conversation about, players jumping up draft boards now being a value and then maybe, and I wanted to do that here with you guys as well. Just try to identify maybe 5 to 7 players that I feel are values right now that I think will rise up draft boards. For example, Dameon Pierce last season was a guy that you could draft in the 10th, 11th round. I feel like the sneeze is coming on all morning. I felt like this sneeze has been coming on. Even with Jake, it's like I'm about to sneeze and I don't. Anyways, we'll roll through this. Dameon Pierce, 10th round, 11th round. At this time last year, July, Marlon Mack gets cut. He jumps up to the 4th round. There are going to be certain players like that are going to rise up draft boards. So I think for me, I want to show you the draft board and kind of identify a few players that are going a little bit later that I think will go earlier in a few weeks, or a couple steals, a couple values. And also for people who do like to maybe start wide receiver heavy, what running backs are available to you in the mid to late rounds? If you start running back heavy, what wide receivers are available to you to the mid to late rounds? So we'll have a large fantasy football draft strategy conversation, but I will show you some of the players that were taken, and I'll show you my team as well. Again, 2 tight ends, 2 flex, no defense, and no kickers, and I like that for sure. We got some MLB picks and some props. We're going to scan the diamond for a few. We're going to pick on the Angels and give a little bit of love to the Padres here. My goodness, the Halos, it's just like every year something seems to just get in their way. They spend 2 to 3 days in a playoff spot looking like, hey, is this going to be the year? Are they going to be aggressive at the deadline? And then all of a sudden in the last few days have had several injuries. All started with Ursula. Gio's had a great season for them, done for the year. Brendan Jury, great season. He's going to be sidelined for a bit. Nice young prospect they drafted a couple years ago. Neto up, he's out. It looks like he's going to come back soon. Joyce comes in, he's out. And then Trout breaks his hand 2 days ago. He's going to be sidelined for 6 to 8 weeks. Rendon left yesterday's game, foul ball off the shin. X-rays were negative, but he may have an IL stint, which would be the 4th for him this season. And then Ohtani left yesterday with a blister on his finger. So it's just all downhill for the Halos. And one team in the Padres that have been disappointing this season. And I heard you, Juan Soto. He said Ohtani would struggle with the lineup, and he kind of did, but he did not struggle with Soto. The Padres they've been disappointing this season, but there's signs. I'm starting to see some signs of life. They're starting to score a little bit more. They're great against lefties. Over the last couple of weeks, they're inside the top 10 in a lot of offensive categories that I care about: WOBA, WRC+, OPS, ISO, runs scored. So they're starting to kind of trend in the right direction. It may be too late for them. Like, they're 4th in their division. They got to gain some ground on the Diamondbacks and the Dodgers, and the Giants are playing good baseball as well. But we're going to give them a little bit of love today. It's been a rocky couple of days around the diamond for me, so hopefully we can bounce back here strong. NHL free agency, plenty of movement. Still a couple marquee guys left. Tarasenko, Kane, Taves, Dumba, DeBrincat, RFA going to get traded. We'll talk about some of the deals, winners and losers, as well as some NBA free agency stuff as well. I think I got to go through a sneeze fit. So we're going to break. We'll be back here in a couple. Quan, send us to commercial. I'm going to give a little bit of love to Circa in Las Vegas. Got to give some love. I got a really nice promo for you guys. And also want to talk a little bit about something that is happening this weekend in case you've missed the news. Big things happening for FTN on Sirius XM Radio happening this Saturday. We'll head to break. We'll be back in a couple. Hang tight.
Play So Rare MLB, a free revolutionary fantasy game and marketplace that transforms fans into general managers. Build your team with ownable digital player cards. Collect, buy, sell, and trade to optimize your lineup. Compete against So Rare managers from around the world. Climb leaderboards and advance to elite competitions. Based on your player's performance on the field, win rewards like game tickets, merch, and much more. Draft your set of free cards now at sorare.com/MLB.
The future of fantasy sports is here with So Rare. Build your teams just like an owner. Buy, sell, or trade officially licensed digital player cards. Build your 5-player weekly lineup, and you could win rewards like tickets, autographed jerseys, and more. The future of fantasy sports is here with So Rare, taking Dynasty to the next level.
Only 4 sneezes in the break, and that's actually not bad. Like, I've set records, like double-digit sneezes. Those that have heard Anthem, double-digit sneezes. It's such a weird thing to talk about, or even say. Those at Anthem Sports Entertainment, Andrew Reed, shout out. He knows. He produced a lot of shows for me over at Anthem Sports Entertainment, FNTSY, shout out, and I've had some issues. Man, I've had some issues for sure. 'Tis the season, I suppose. Pollen all over the place. Good afternoon, Daily Handle. Jordan Allen. Hope you're enjoying the summer ball. We've seen some Chet Holmgren, right? We forget about Chet. Top pick for the Thunder a couple years ago. I see some nice performances from him early on. So 2 things here to get to. Sirius XM Fantasy. We're happy to be part of the family. The FTN Fantasy Show debuts this Saturday, 9 a.m. Eastern. We'll be with you every Saturday on Sirius XM Fantasy Radio Channel 87 on the dial. Saturdays at 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern, myself, Jake Seeley, and Lauren Carpenter. Really looking forward to that. And something that we've talked about a lot on All in Football a new sponsor over at All in Football. Again, All in Football is not going to go anywhere. It's going to turn into a 2-day show, Mondays and Wednesdays. And it's already started that way, Mondays and Wednesdays. Mondays with Jake Seeley and Lauren Carpenter, and I'll join Jake on Wednesdays. And throughout the season, it's going to be the same sort of deal. Monday, it's going to be like a heavy waiver wire show. And on Wednesday, I'm going to pick apart Jake's rankings. That's it. It's going to be like a rankings reveal show. And that's usually when we both have our rankings done. Monday's all about the waiver wire. And then Wednesday's all about, the release of our rankings. And we'll talk about players we like a little bit different and things like that. Troy in the house. Blue Jackets. I mean, according to Bader, they do have a really nice prospect pool. I think the Canadians, I see a lot of people ranking them near the top as well. I know they had a lot of great players at the World Juniors this past year. And Lane Hudson, man, that guy is an absolute stud. He's balling out over at the rookie camp. I want to talk to you guys just quickly about Circa Las Vegas here. So there's a giveaway, and it really is the ultimate fantasy football draft. And it's happening in Las Vegas, which is fantastic. Circa Resort and Casino. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but they want to bring you and your entire league to Vegas for the ultimate. They're calling it the ultimate fantasy football experience giveaway. Your 12 people in your league for a 2-night stay at Circa Resort. You're going to have your draft from a cabana at Stadium Swim, plus limo transportation to and from the airport, a welcome party at Legacy Club, a booth at the world's largest sports book, and a whole lot more. $8,000 prize package. I mean, I don't know if you're familiar with Circa Stadium Swim. It's, you got tons of screens set up. You can be in the pool. You can be outside the pool. You just be chilling. But everything here is going to be paid for. The 2-night stay. You have your draft. Multiple parties for you and your league around Circa. Head to circalasvegas.com. I got a couple tidbits here. Just you get the booth with $500 beverage credit. You have the 2-hour open bar at Overhang Bar for your entire league. I mentioned the limo to and from. I'm just looking at your league is going to draft at Stadium Swim from a cabana, which is super cool. $5,000 food and beverage cart. $5,000 just for you guys. I mean, the video, you have the video. Let's roll it, Quan. This is fantastic stuff. Let's give them some love.
Only one place can deliver the ultimate fantasy football draft experience. Circa Resort and Casinos wants to bring you and your 12-person fantasy football league to the hottest resort in Vegas. Win a 2-night stay, limousine transportation, and a live draft at Stadium Swim, along with food, beverages, a welcome party, and more. There's no better place to draft than Circa Resort and Casinos. Visit circalasvegas.com for more information.
I mean, you kidding me with that promo? One, Quan nailed it out of the park. Boom, grand slam. Relayed the info a lot better than I did here on the Wednesday for you guys. But I mean, you kidding me with that? That sounds like such an unbelievable time with you and your draft buddies in your home league and everything just taken care of. The food, the limo is cool, but Stadium Swim as well. The $8,000 really package in terms of food and beverage. They're going to take care of you. I think you can sign up, as you saw there. In case you missed it, you head on over to circalasvegas.com for more information. And I do believe the drafts are going to happen around Labor Day. So you got some time to sign up, but I wouldn't wait too long. I'd get over there. Let's Troy, we're gonna wait. We have some NHL stuff. I know you're on top of everything. There's been a few free agent signings. I wanted to talk about some winners and some losers in the NHL. A couple, from a fantasy standpoint, from a betting standpoint, the odds have changed. The Bruins are not favored to win the Stanley Cup. I think they're one of the losers from NHL free agency, but we'll see. You can never really count out the Boston Bruins. I wanted to show you my team. This is the team that I drafted in the Independence Day Invitational over on Sirius XM. Again, a 2 tight end league. You got to start 2 tight ends. I'll show you the draft results in the next block, but this is what I rolled with here. I had picked 3. Travis Kelce went first overall, and then Justin Jefferson 2. Jamar Chase went at 3. I was thinking that I would have the opportunity to maybe take Kelce at 3 if I wanted to, or Cooper Kupp. I thought it would go JJ and Chase, and then I was thinking I could have an opportunity maybe I would go with Cooper Kupp, Travis Kelce, or CMC. I ended up taking Jamar Chase. I take Breece Hall there with the 10th pick in the second round. Jalen Hurts, the third pick there in the third round. Amari Cooper in the fourth. Cam Akers in the fifth. Okonkwo's my guy. We've been talking a lot about him here. He's my first tight end. I took him in the sixth round. Chris Godwin, Juwan Johnson as another breakout tight end. These are two tight ends that I think will break out. They're two tight ends that are going outside the top 10. I do have Okonkwo. I think I have him 10 or 11. I got Juwan Johnson there around 14 or 15. Addison as my fourth wide receiver, rookie wide out for the Minnesota Vikings. Actually, you see Addison there twice. It's all good. I had some pops at George too. I mean, it's July 4th, right? Addison, you got to draft him twice. He's that good. Rashad Penny, Singletary in there, the back-to-back running backs, Alan Lazard. Zeke, I took some shots on Zeke in the 13th round here, is kind of avoided running backs for the first, 10 rounds or so, row 2, 3. I got two running backs in the first 9 rounds, and then I double tapped kind of in Penny and Singletary. Zeke, where do I want Zeke to go? I'm thinking of teams where Zeke could go that I would be happy with, that draft pick at that point, taking an opportunity on him. I think for one, Dallas, like if he went to the Dallas Cowboys, I wouldn't hate that. It would be bad for Tony Pollard, but if he rejoined the Cowboys on, a cheap contract, I think ultimately I know what I would get with Zeke. I'd get some goal line work. He wouldn't completely go away. Other teams that I think about the Chargers, it would be awful for Austin Eckler, but I think Zeke could get some early down work. I think he could get some goal line work as well. I think Zeke and Kareem Hunt are going to sign contracts somewhere. And I think Fournette as well. Dalvin Cook especially. I do feel like Cook will go to Miami. I know he's favored to go to the Dolphins following the Patriots. But Zeke at this point in the draft, I think it's a pretty decent, dart throw. It's not going to cost a whole lot. He's not completely washed. This guy is going to land somewhere in the NFL. It may not happen for a bit. There may have to be an injury that takes place and then he'll join somewhere. But I'm thinking, I don't believe the Broncos, but I think the Chargers are in play. I even think the Dolphins could be in play. I think the Cowboys are still in play for them. The Patriots are in play. That would be a tough one for Ramondre. I wouldn't like that one overall. I don't believe the Eagles will go down that road. I think Washington is in play for one of these guys. Maybe Kareem Hunt could be a get for the Commanders, which would really hurt Antonio Gibson. I think the Seahawks are set. I think the Niners are set. The Rams could dive into maybe Kareem Hunt or Leonard Fournette. The Arizona Cardinals, I just don't think that they're going that route. They're completely rebuilding. They got Connor there. The Vikings just cut Cook. Would they bring in a veteran back on cheap? I don't think so. The Lions seem okay. The Packers are fine. The Bears got a bunch of things going on there. Tampa Bay is the same sort of deal. They're strapped against the cap. They're going to bring in a veteran back. They just got Fournette. I don't think that they will. The Saints seem to have some secondary options in case Alvin Kamara does get suspended for a lengthy time, and Carolina and Atlanta. I mean, so there's not a lot of teams out. Carolina, Atlanta are fine. So there's not a lot of teams out there, a lot of suitors, but at that point, Zeke in, the 13th round, I think it's okay. Jaden Reed there, didn't get my guy, Christian Watson. So wanted to get Reed. Jelani Woods is my third tight end in round 15. And then John Mechie there in the 16th round. Troy, what positions did you think were overdrafted or undervalued when you drafted? He's thinking of stacking running back and wide receiver early, just drafting Danny Dimes late. So this isn't a best ball. I don't think you need to stack in redraft leagues. I think, you can. I know I did a flex league last year in Jake Seeley's flex league, and I did a couple things there that I liked. I had Trevor Lawrence with Christian Kirk, and I had Marquise Brown with Kyler Murray, and, I was really on my way until playoffs happened and I lost Kyler, and it was a really big blow to my squad. But I don't think you need to stack. We'll go over the draft results in the next block, but it is a little bit of a different draft because you take 2 tight ends. So we'll have to take that into consideration when we break down this draft. But I think that ultimately, I don't really feel like there are any overdrafted, undervalued positions. Like, we'll get into it. Maybe let's just break one and we'll get into the draft board, and I'll show you guys where some of these players went. I'll try to identify some of the value. But again, this is a little bit of a different draft with the 2 tight ends. But Danny Dimes is a pretty good quarterback to take late. I don't think you need to take a quarterback early. I did in Jalen Hurts. I really want to have a top 8 quarterback. I think that there is a drop off after, I've said this a couple times, like that tier 1 for me is Hurts, who led all quarterbacks in fantasy points per game, and Mahomes and Allen. And Allen's been, the most consistent fantasy quarterback over the past couple of years. He's been rock solid. Mahomes as well, of course. And then that next tier with Lamar and Fields and Burrow. And then the third tier for me would be Trevor Lawrence and Justin Herbert. I do really want to get a piece of that tier. I think that there is some inconsistency at the quarterback position after that. But again, you could make the case for tons of quarterbacks. Like Geno Smith wasn't getting drafted last year. He finished, as quarterback 5, quarterback 8 in fantasy points per game. He's probably my favorite quarterback outside the top 10. Sneaky on the ground, 300 rushing yards last year, was top 10 at the position. He led the NFL in completion percentage. He was accurate in terms of deep ball. He was inside the top 10 in deep ball touchdowns. They added JSN. They added Devin Weatherspoon, so arguably the best corner and the best wide receiver in the draft. I think they're better defensively. I think Geno is a really good quarterback outside the top 10. Danny Dimes is as well. I mean, I don't know if he's going to have 700 rushing yards again, but they've built something around him. Last year, there wasn't a lot for him in the passing game. Brian Daboll did a great job and really, I don't know, like Danny Dimes looked like he had 1 foot out the door. Daniel Jones, 1 foot out the door in New York. It really looked like that, especially after week 2 or 3. I can picture Daboll screaming at him on the sidelines, like, what's going on? But he was very accurate. He turned things around. And I don't know if there's a chance that they get Hopkins. I think maybe slightly. But they have a lot going on there now all of a sudden. They bring in Paris Campbell. They re-signed Slayton. They got Sterling Shepard. They got Wan'Dale Robinson. They drafted Jalen Hyatt. They brought in Darren Waller. They also have Daniel Bellinger. They have a lot of different pieces. I don't think they're stud pieces, but they do have some assets now, and I think it's a possibility. Hopkins is favored to go to the Patriots at the moment, according to DraftKings, but I think that's a possibility. They could potentially go down that route. Anyways, the quarterback position, you could make it your last pick. If you wanted a Geno, you attack it in the mid to late rounds. We'll show you the draft board and identify some quarterbacks that were taken. But I'll tell you why. I had a lot of Jalen Hurts last year. I had a lot of Justin Fields last year. I had a lot of Trevor Lawrence last year. And I was never hurting at the quarterback position. Guys like Rodgers that don't come with a rushing floor, Russell Wilson at this point of his career, Derek Carr, when these guys struggle and don't have 2 touchdown games, they can get you single fantasy points. It's not great. You got a guy like Jalen Hurts or Justin Fields, Lamar Jackson, even Joe Burrow, who's kind of sneaky on the ground, but doesn't really fit the rushing upside as those other guys. But Jalen Hurts has got, off the top of my head, 20 plus rushing touchdowns over the last 2 years, over 1,400 rushing yards, 10 rushing attempts per game over the last 2 years, which leads all quarterbacks as well. It's if he doesn't have that 2 touchdown game, get you 40 rushing yards. It's like starting with a free touchdown. It really is a free touchdown. It's a nice solid floor. And I do believe that there's a big drop off there. It's weird for me because I'm taking a quarterback late. I've always kind of been in that range, that strategy. But last year, kind of changed my tune with these rushing quarterbacks. I just want one. I just want to get one, and I have no issue spending on one of them. We're going to break. We'll show you, Troy, the way that this board fell. We'll try to identify some values. That here next on Mean Streets. Keep it locked.
Play So Rare MLB, a free revolutionary fantasy game and marketplace that transforms fans into general managers. Build your team with ownable digital player cards. Collect, buy, sell, and trade to optimize your lineup. Compete against So Rare managers from around the world. Climb leaderboards and advance to elite competitions. Based on your player's performance on the field, win rewards like game tickets, merch, and much more. Draft your set of free cards now at sorare.com/MLB. Play So Rare MLB, a free revolutionary fantasy game and marketplace that transforms fans into general managers. Build your team with ownable digital player cards. Collect, buy, sell, and trade to optimize your lineup. Compete against SoRare managers from around the world. Climb leaderboards and advance to elite competitions. Based on your player's performance on the field, win rewards like game tickets, merch, and much more. Draft your set of free cards now at sorare.com/MLB.
Welcome back in. There's a look at the draft. Before we dive into it, Troy, if you're still hanging out, I wanted to talk salary cap with you just for a second here. And in salary cap, these teams, they find a way to, it's just jokes with my buddies that the salary cap in the NFL is fake and it's not real. You always hear teams that are way over the cap and all of a sudden, restructure all these contracts and you're below it. But in terms of the Giants, only 4.1 million in their salary cap. Like, it's the fourth fewest. I mean, Chiefs have under $1 million room, the Bucks 2.4, the Raiders at 3, the Giants at 4, and the Bills at 5. The team with the most cap space are the Bears at 31, the Panthers at 27, the Colts at 25, the Cowboys at 24, and Arizona at 23. The Cowboys are a team that I thought would be aggressive getting Hopkins, but they got cooked. So I don't know, like, Hopkins is going to go somewhere. Again, according to DraftKings, the favorite is the Patriots, followed by the Titans. Those two teams, I don't know if the Patriots go down that road now that they signed Parker. I could tell you right now, the Titans definitely want Hopkins. Does he want to go there? I'd say at this point of his career, he wants to go to a contender. He wants to be with a Super Bowl contender. But I mean, these teams already they're loaded at the wide receiver position. San Fran, don't need you. Philly, don't need you. And there's no disrespect to Hopkins. I'm sure they would like to have Hopkins, but there just doesn't seem to be any room in San Fran or Philly. Buffalo, sure. Is that why Diggs was upset? He restructured his contract. He thought that they would get Hopkins. The Jets, no, I don't think. It would be an upgrade over Corey Davis and Lazard, but I don't think so. The Bengals, no. The Chiefs, sure, but I don't think they're going to go that route. We just talked about the salary cap. And the Chargers, no. The Jags, no. Like, these teams, maybe the Browns, does he reunite with Hopkins or with Watson? I think it's a possibility. But yeah, I mean, the Giants, they got a little bit of cap space. They bought out Kenny, so it's a possibility. They could go down that road. Let's take a look at this draft. This for the iTunes listeners and Spotify listeners, I'll read this thing off for you here. So Travis Kelce goes first, again, 2 tight end league, but that was still a little bit of a surprise. But he's definitely got Hutchinson here. This team's got the best tight end in fantasy football. Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Christian McCaffrey, 2 Howard Bender, Cooper Kupp, Austin Eckler, AJ Brown, Tyreek Hill, Bijan Robinson. Again, I'm just not there. Stephon Diggs, Jonathan Taylor, Saquon Barkley, then Josh Jacobs, Derrick Henry. So both teams here in the 11 and 12 spot go double RB. And as you can see, I mean, Dempsey here got some pretty good wide receivers going double RB, got a little bit of value there in the 6 with Alexander Mattison. But DK Metcalf, Christian Watson, who we've talked about on the show at length, love him. Top 10 wide receiver from week 10 to week 18 last year and 3rd in fantasy points per game at the position over that span. Madison, as I mentioned, pretty good value here for Alexander Mattison. We've talked about him in best ball drafts going much earlier than this. Of course, when you add in the tight ends, these players get pushed down a round or two, but Alexander Madison's kind of been living in he's been going ahead of Aaron Jones and Gibbs and some drafts over Cook and Sanders here, and Howard Bender takes Cook in the 4th round. Says, I don't care. I know he's going to go somewhere good. I'm taking him now, and I like the pick, actually. I was considering him myself there, but he sniped him just before me. So some good wide receivers here, despite going running back to start. DK Watson, Mike Evans, Marquise Brown, Jameson Williams is going to miss some time. It's okay. I don't mind the look of the team here. The wide receivers for Ricky, not that great. start Saquon, Jacobs, Mixon, and Aaron Jones. I didn't think really needed a fourth back there. It's kind of shocked. Herbert, and then the double tight ends, and then Mike Williams as your wide receiver 1 and Brendan Cooks as your wide receiver 2. I don't necessarily love that, but some pretty decent value there on those two guys. Anyways, into the second round after Henry, Adams, Nick Chubb. I knew he wouldn't fall to me at the 10th pick in the second, but man, would love. That's a pretty good start. Bijan and Nick Chubb is a pretty good 1-2 punch out of the backfield, even though I'm not there. Like I would rather Chubb than Bijan at pick 9, but he gets them both there. John Lobb, Pollard, St. Brown, CD, Ramondre, Garrett Wilson, and then Breece Hall to my second. I would have went Garrett Wilson if Howard didn't. I was going to go Chase and Wilson. I was going to be ecstatic about that start. And then Hall, I went Hall. I had some people ask me, am I worried about, is he going to be full health? And am I worried about Michael Carter? And I'm not. I'm not worried about Michael Carter. I'm not worried about Izzy. Hall is, he's all signs point to him being ready to go week 1, full go. He may not be a 15 plus touch guy in the first couple weeks of the season, but his skill set overtook Michael Carter early on in the season, and he's just an unbelievable back. He's going to be the goal line guy there. He's going to catch some passes. I really like Hall. I wanted Stevenson. I thought Stevenson may slip to me. I thought I think when I look at my team here, and I want to evaluate other teams, but if I look at my team here, I think in hindsight, you wait on Jalen. I know Hurts has been a 3rd round pick, and Mahomes and Allen. I thought maybe those guys would go, and I wouldn't have the opportunity to get that first tier on the way back. And it looked like I potentially would have been able to get Hurts or Allen. So maybe with pick 3, I also thought about TJ Hawkinson there as well. So in hindsight, if I could change anything, maybe I go Waddle, Olave, or Smith at pick 2. And then I'd probably go Najee Harris there with pick 3. And then I get one of those quarterbacks. And of course, I probably miss out on Cooper. It is what it is. I don't hate this team. But the end of the second goes Waddle, Chris Olave to start the third, Devontae Smith, Mark Andrews, and then Jalen Hurts, myself, Hawkinson, who I did think a lot about. And, TJ Hawkinson's going to be the number 2 target there after Justin Jefferson. I think, if you get Hawkinson or Jordan Addison like I got here in the 9th, I think it's a pretty good option. What I do believe will be a pass-happy offense. Still don't fully believe in the secondary. And, I don't want anything to happen to Justin Jefferson, but if anything did, there's going to be a lot of targets to go around for Hawkinson and Addison. But Hawkinson was really strong with Kirk Cousins down the stretch of the season. And Addison, it could be, I think he'll be the 3rd option there. I really do believe it could be KJ Osborne, but I do believe it's going to be Addison. Anyways, the end of the 3rd here, Etienne, Najee Harris, Deebo Samuel, Higgins, Goddard, Darren Waller, Metcalf, and Joe Mixon. Into the 4th, Aaron Jones, George Kittle, Gibbs, Keenan Allen, Kyle Pitts, Calvin Ridley, Miles Sanders. Then you get some of the quarterbacks here, and Mahomes, Cook to Howard, Cooper to myself, Kenneth Walker, Allen, DJ Moore, Lamar Jackson. And then away you go. You also got Burrow and Fields into this tier, Herbert and Trevor Lawrence. And then there's a bit of a drop off. The quarterback stop after round 6 into Deshaun Watson. So Watson was the only quarterback taken from round 7 into round 10. So you see where the drop off is. And a lot of people in this draft are agreeing that that's where there's a gap, I would say, between Lawrence and the rest. And you can include Watson. He's close to scratching that tier for me, for Herbert and Trevor Lawrence. And after that, it's just, you can wait it out a little bit. I did want to go over this first team, right? You get Travis Kelce there, avoiding running backs. Chris Olave, Devontae Smith gets himself a top tier quarterback, and Josh Allen, DJ Moore, Brendan Ayuk, and Jackson Smith-Njigba. I think that this team is solid. Clearly some really good wide receivers. I don't think he has an alpha 1. I know that there's some guys that are scratching on the surface. Olave and Smith I have as borderline wide receiver 1s. DJ Moore, I believe in him. You bring the quarterback over, or you bring the wide receiver over for the quarterback. We've seen that with Stephon Diggs for Josh Allen, and we saw it with A.J. Brown last year for Jalen Hurts. And I think we'll see a similar uptick for Justin Fields with DJ Moore there. And then Brendan Ayuk and Jackson Smith-Njigba, I'm not crazy about their outlooks this season. I just don't love I'm not crazy about the quarterback playing San Fran, even though Purdy was good. But, you got Debo, you got Kittle, you got CMC. Ayuk is going to be very inconsistent. Jackson Smith-Njigba, I do believe, is going to be very inconsistent as well as the number 3 option on this team in Seattle. And then I wanted to show you how the running backs look when you do go wide receiver heavy. So we'll do that in the next block. Just looking at the rest of this draft, I don't want to say that like, oh, Godwin, because he's on my team, but I think Godwin and Mike Evans in the 7th round here. Say what you want about the quarterback play, whether it's Kyle Trask or Baker Mayfield, but those two guys in the 7th, I think is pretty decent value. I'm looking at all the other wide receivers that went here in the 7th. Like Hopkins doesn't have a team. Am I going to be crazy about him in New England? No, I'm not. And if he's in Tennessee, it's going to kill Treylon Burks a little bit. But Godwin over Jackson Smith-Njigba, no question for me. Treylon Burks, I like. Deontay Johnson, is he going to score a couple touchdowns this year? Yeah, probably. He should be the go-to guy there, but there's some other pieces, in Pat Freiermuth, and I love, Pickett to Pickens connection, and also I'm not crazy about Allen Robinson, but they did bring in Allen Robinson. Pittman here, I think, is a decent value. Tyler Lockett as well. I mean, just for an example, Tyler Lockett goes in the 7th, and DK Metcalf goes in the 3rd. Those two guys, it's funny. They always kind of finish neck and neck, but they don't get drafted that way. So, for example, Tyler Lockett, I have it here. Quan, if you could just get okay. Yeah, thank you. I got a lot going on here. I'll just talk about these two guys for a second, and then we'll break and we'll take a look at the rest of the draft. So I talked about Geno, quarterback 5 and quarterback 8 in fantasy points per game, 30 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, over 300 rushing yards, led the NFL in completion. So really good quarterback, I think, to target late. But Tyler Lockett was drafted last year as wide receiver 33, and he finishes wide receiver 13. He had 12.2 fantasy points per game. He had over 1,000 yards, 8 touchdowns. He had 84 grabs, 117 targets. DK Metcalf was getting drafted as wide receiver 15. He finished as wide receiver 18. So Lockett finished ahead of him and went 20 picks, roughly 20 picks after him. I call it 17. Same sort of thing this year. Now, you're adding JSN to the equation, but if you go back to 2021, Lockett finishes wide receiver 13, 12.8 fantasy points per game. DK Metcalf, wide receiver 12, 12.2 fantasy points per game. So this has been back-to-back years now where Lockett has finished ahead of DK Metcalf, but DK Metcalf is going ahead of him in drafts. Now, I do have DK Metcalf ranked ahead of Lockett. I expect more targets. I think there's slightly a higher ceiling. They both had 1,000 yards. Metcalf had 6 touchdowns. Lockett had 8. But Lockett is the value. Lockett's the value. Lockett's the guy that these guys should be closer together. It reminds me of the conversations last year with Elijah Moore and Garrett Wilson, or conversations this year with Calvin Ridley and Christian Kirk. Like, Ridley has the higher ceiling, but would I be shocked if Kirk finished like within 10 to 20 fantasy points away from him, or maybe even ahead of him, or maybe even on par? No, I wouldn't. Same sort of deal here with Lockett and Metcalf. It's been back-to-back years. I got it in front of me because it's been one of the things that I'd like to discuss here when I'm talking about values and like 2 stud wide receivers. Why don't those guys go closer together, like a T. Higgins and a Jamar Chase, or a Devontae Smith and an AJ Brown, or a Tyreek Hill or Jalen Waddle? Why aren't those guys like much closer? It really should be Metcalf wide receiver 15 and Tyler Lockett roughly wide receiver 20. He's a pretty good target. What was that? Round 7 here for the wide receivers. I mean, I'll count them in the break, but it's some pretty decent value in the 7th round for some of these guys. Also feel like Cooks, Gabe Davis this time last year was getting drafted as a top 20 wide receiver. Disappointed everybody. Finishes wide receiver 27. Not bad. Didn't finish as wide receiver 20 like a lot of people expected. Now he's going roughly wide receiver 37, 40. He's become a value now. Overvalued, overdrafted last year, now underdrafted this year. It's like the stock market. This is how things go. I'm in on Gabe Davis in the 9th round. I like Dotson in the 9th. I like the flyer on Michael Thomas in the 9th and Addison there as well. But let's talk some running backs in this next block. For the people that go 0 RB, to start their draft, like Hutchinson here early on, like Bob Lung early on. I really like Lung's backs a little bit more than Hutchinson. Montgomery could play that Jamal Williams role. know if he's going to get 17 rushing touchdowns, but he's going to be the goal line back there in Detroit. Khalil Herbert could be the lead there in Chicago. He really grades well for me, even though there's a couple different backs. If you go 0 RB, there's some backs like Akers and Pacheco, Pierce here, Dobbins, Rashad White, Alexander Madison, a little bit earlier in normal drafts, Montgomery, Herbert, Robinson to Washington, P. Ryan I like. There's some backs here that we can target. We'll break and talk the rest of the draft and really we'll seek some value out. So keep her locked. We'll be back here in a couple. We'll look at rounds 9 to 16 from the Independence Day Invitational on Sirius XM. Mean Streets continues here on Game Plus Network next.
The future of fantasy sports is here with So Rare. Build your teams just like an owner. Buy, sell, or trade officially licensed digital player cards. Build your 5-player weekly lineup, and you could win rewards like tickets, autographed jerseys, and more. The future of fantasy sports is here with So Rare, taking Dynasty to the next level. The future of fantasy sports is here with So Rare. Build your teams just like an owner. Buy, sell, or trade officially licensed digital player cards. Build your 5-player weekly lineup, and you could win rewards like tickets, autographed jerseys, and more. The future of fantasy sports is here with So Rare, taking Dynasty to the next level.
Welcome back in. Let's take a look at the later rounds of the draft. See if we can find some value here. So I just want to stick with Hutchinson. I do like the makeup of his team, but I just don't like the running backs. Honestly, I just feel like it's going to struggle throughout the season. I mean, Charbonnet and Pirine as your 1 and your 2 week 1. It's not ideal. And I'm a big Javonte. I think Javonte here. I mean, he went earlier than this, and we've talked about him in high stakes leagues going much earlier. He's the guy that I think is going to rise up draft boards. He's got upside to be an RB1, and what Sean Payton can do with his running backs, I think both guys will be involved. I do like Pirine, don't get me wrong, as a target. I just don't want him as my RB2. I like Harris. Harris is like, again, if you're going 0 RB, Damian Harris is a guy that, could fall into double-digit touchdowns on what is arguably a top 5 offense in Buffalo. You got Cook there trending up, but I think Harris will be the goal line back there. I mean, Josh Allen really is the goal line back, but Harris is a guy that you can target. Jalen Warren is a running back that I really like as well. He could have a standalone role as a third down back. He's a good back, but he's not going to steal a lot of touches away from Najee Harris. And then Davis at the end. I mean, I know that Dallas doesn't have a lot going on, but they're kidding themselves if they're just going to roll into this season with Davis. And, as like their secondary guy. I know that they drafted a guy who's it's slipping my mind right now. It's like just really does feel like a Monday. I'll probably think about it in the next block or so. Anyways, some 0 RB running backs if you wanted to go that route. Some guys that you could target. And I think what you should do is you don't want to handcuff. You want to maximize your upside. You want to get other people's handcuffs. You want to get some running backs that if an injury happens, and they're going to happen, they really will happen over the course of the season, guys will fall into larger roles. And I think that's what you want to do. You want to maximize your upside. So Hutchinson did that, with Harris and Pirine and Warren. Elijah Mitchell is a good one here from Mick. I do like Robinson from Washington as a mid to late round value there. Tajay Spears, Henry's gone down a couple times. Rashad Penny hasn't shown us that he can be fully healthy, but neither is DeAndre Swift. And Penny, I do believe, will be the goal line back in Philadelphia, which is very valuable. We saw Miles Sanders have double-digit touchdowns last year, and it's a good offensive line. Zeke, Foreman, right? If anything happened to Collier, he could earn, we've seen Foreman before in a large role. Miller is a decent one here. If Kamara gets suspended for X amount of games, I do believe it's going to be Jamal Williams. I'd rather Jamal Williams, who went one pick ahead of Kendra Miller there. Ford is just a pass catching back. Fournette is a good punt, towards the end. Bigsby's a guy that we've talked about. I do believe ETN's going to be the lead. I think ETN's in for a really good season. I just feel like ETN owners may be frustrated at times with Bigsby getting some goal line work and some early down work, but there's no question ETN's going to see some soft boxes with all those weapons in Jacksonville. Schubert Hubbard's a decent flyer towards the end of anything happens in Miles Sanders. What do you got? A-Chain here. I don't think A-Chain's a great pick this year with them rumored to get Dalvin Cook and then having Jeff Wilson and Mostert on the roster as well. A.J. Dillon, I think, is a good pick here in the 10th. He is going to be the goal line back there. Aaron Jones hasn't had a lot of rushing touchdowns over the past couple of seasons. Aaron Jones has been the better back, but A.J. Dillon maybe leaned on a little bit more when an inexperienced quarterback in Jordan Love. I could see him 15-plus touches, and he wanted some consolation brackets towards the end of the season, but those good games, at least they happened. It wasn't just a complete lost season for A.J. Dillon. I did expect more from him overall. It was a great second half. Where was that in the first half, dude? Jerick McKinnon's a good pick here outside the 10th. This is a PPR setting. He did have 9 receiving touchdowns last year. I don't think he's going to have that again this year, but he's a nice veteran piece. He's going to catch a lot of passes, a link to a really good offense there. Alvin Kamara is a decent dart throw. We just don't know what's going to happen with him, but in the 10th. And Algier, is a handcuff. Again, not that one you want. If you draft Bijan, don't draft Algier. But if you draft Algier and anything happened to Bijan, my goodness, I hope it doesn't. But we know Algier 1,000 yards last year on 200 carries. So this is a guy that could return some value for you if anything happened. Look at the quarterbacks: Daniel Jones, Tua, Dak, Cousins, Rodgers, Geno here in the 14th, I think is an absolute great pick. Anthony Richardson here in the 14th, great pick. Jared Goff, 15th. So you could wait Russell Wilson last round. You can always wait at the quarterback position. You can for years. It's been years covering it for a long time. There's always like 3 or 4 quarterbacks that finish inside the top 12 that don't get drafted or get drafted outside round 12. It's probably going to happen again this year, but there is a big drop off. Let's not kid ourselves with the top 3 tiers into the other tiers as well. I would make the cutoff for personally T-Law. And if you're waiting, get a guy like Geno, get a guy like Daniel Jones with a little bit of a rushing floor there, can help you out. We're going to break again. We'll bring in some people that took part in that draft to dissect it and talk about their strategy and some of their players as well. But we're going to turn our attention to the NHL. We'll talk about some of the big free agent signings here over the past a couple of days. Hang tight.
The future of fantasy sports is here with So Rare. Build your teams just like an owner. Buy, sell, or trade officially licensed digital player cards. Build your 5-player weekly lineup, and you could win rewards like tickets, autographed jerseys, and more. The future of fantasy sports is here with So Rare, taking Dynasty to the next level. The future of fantasy sports is here with So Rare. Build your teams just like an owner. Buy, sell, or trade officially licensed digital player cards. Build your 5-player weekly lineup, and you could win rewards like tickets, autographed jerseys, and more. The future of fantasy sports is here with So Rare, taking Dynasty to the next level.
Welcome back. And let's take a look at some of the NHL free agency signings over the past little bit. I don't have these ranked in order, but, Duchesne, I think, is the best player on this board. He was bought out by the Nashville Predators, and he signed a 1-year, $3 million deal with the Dallas Stars. And Dallas, you guys know I'm a big fan of the Stars here. They brought back Dadonov. They got Wyatt Johnson. Ben had that nice campaign. Now Duchesne maybe on that third line with Tyler Seguin. Offensively, they got 3 lines that can cook. So I really liked that signing. Blake Wheeler as well. Like, there's a lot of 1-year deals on here with the cap expected to go up anywhere from 3 to 5 million next season. So I think that's why you see a lot of these, kind of prove it deals, and maybe they'll dive back in and get a larger contract next year. But Blake Wheeler is the best value on the board here. Are you kidding me? $800K. The Leafs signed Ryan Reeves to over $1 million in a 3-year extension, and all he does is drop the glove. So Blake Wheeler was a great get by the Rangers here. A nice bounce back season from Wheeler. Tyler Bertuzzi, Max Domi, and I mentioned Reeves, Klingberg as well to the Leafs, but Bertuzzi and Domi really like both signings there for the Toronto Maple Leafs. They're $8 million over the cap. When you put Jake Muzzin on long-term IR, they're still $3 million over the cap. I saw some reports they want to trade Matt Murray. Duh. Obviously. Do cheeseburgers come with cheese? They do. Of course the Leafs want to trade Matt Murray. I'm sure somebody's going to help them out, but I wouldn't be. Ryan O'Reilly, Nashville did some weird things, right? They kind of changed the culture there. They bought out Duchesne. They traded Ryan Johansson. They signed Ryan O'Reilly 4 years, $4.5 million. He's going to be the number 1 center for the Predators, going to play alongside Philip Forsberg. They also brought in Gustav Nyquist. JT Compher goes to Detroit, 5 years, $5.1 million. Michael Bunting to Carolina. So the Leafs traded in Bunting and Kerfoot, and they did upgrade with Bertuzzi and Domi. We're pretty cool to see Max Domi, where Ty used to play. Some pictures that are surfacing as Max is a young buck with his dad and all Leafs gear on the ice and things like that. It's pretty cool to see. Evan Rodriguez going to get a real opportunity inside the top 6, a loaded top 6 in Florida, 4 years, 3 per. Alex Killorn is the worst contract that was signed here, 4 times $6.25 million per year. The Ducks aren't even close to the floor, so I get it. They got RFAs and Zegras and Terry to sign as well, but Killorn is just, you're paying for the resume at this point. He doesn't have a lot to offer. Anyways, it's a weird signing, and just that's why he went to the Ducks, because nobody else would pay that kind of money. Max Pacioretty, easy for me to say. I love this guy. He's an absolute sniper. Unfortunately for him, he ruptured his Achilles again. He's not going to be ready to go October, maybe November, December. But if he is healthy and he's good for the second half, he will provide some offense inside that top 6 for Washington. Jason Zucker goes to Arizona on a 1-year deal. Kerfoot also went to Arizona. Connor Brown, Jonathan Drouin, and JVR. I do want to give a little bit of love to Connor Brown, who has played with Connor McDavid before. This guy's going to be sneaky good in fantasy if he can stay healthy. He's going to be up on that top line, I do believe. At times with McDavid, he's going to be on that top line, or with Draisaitl. He's certainly somebody we're going to be talking about in terms of props, and maybe a nice little late round pick. Duran, I like this for Colorado as well. You got to remember Duran, who was the 3rd overall pick in the 2013 draft. McKinnon was the 1st overall pick in the 2013 draft. These guys played together for the Halifax Mooseheads. I watched. They were electric, especially Duran. They combined for 73 goals and 180 points. It was Duran who led the team. Mooseheads went on to win the Memorial Cup in 2012. These guys back together again. Duran at $800K. He's going to have an opportunity to play with Nathan McKinnon. That's going to be fun to watch those two guys. I think he's going to do well there. He's not a big sniper at this point of his career. He doesn't shoot the puck, but playing with McKinnon, playing with Rantanen, I really think that he's going to be sneaky good in fantasy. And then JVR to Boston could be as well. We'll get into we got a quick time here on the defense. Dmitry Orlov to Carolina. The rich get richer on the blue line. They led the NHL in goals. 6% of their goals came from their blue line. I like the Bunting addition as well. They were able to bring back both Ranta and Frederik Andersen. Gostisbehere goes to Detroit. Klingberg to Toronto. Ryan Graves to Pittsburgh. Luke Shen to Nashville. He proved that he could still play and high minutes as well. Next to Roman Josi in Nashville. Gudas goes to the Ducks. Susie of Vancouver and Clifton there to Buffalo. And then the goalies, not a lot happened here. Korpisalo to Ottawa. LA is going to be super thin in goal with Cam Talbot. Jonathan Quick backing up Igor Shesterkin in New York. James Reimer there. Some competition in Detroit. Mackenzie Blackwood in San Jose. So not a lot of goalie movement. Jerry signed a ridiculous contract, re-upped with Pittsburgh. And then I mentioned the 2 Carolina guys there as well. The winners and losers. I think the Leafs were some winners. Not a lot of time to get into Reeves, but they're not going to drop the gloves in the playoffs. He's not a playoff player. He's going to be limited. He's middle-aged guy, 36, 3-year contract. Are you kidding me? No foot speed. I didn't understand that at all. It'll be fun in the regular season. You drop the gloves and fight everybody in the regular season. There's just no fighting in the playoffs. Is he going to make Matthews and Marner tougher in the playoffs? I didn't get that signing at all. I think it's a weird signing. Leafs should be building a playoff roster, not a regular season roster. And they did that with Bertuzzi and Domi. Like Carolina with Bunting and Orlov and bringing back the goalies. I like Pittsburgh acquiring Smith, Eller, Achari, and Graves on the blue line. I like what Chicago did with some veteran players and Foligno and Hall and Perry. And I do like Duchesne to Dallas. I think the big loser is Boston, but we'll wait and see. If Bergeron and Krejci aren't back, are they going to start the season with Coyle and Zach as their number 1 and number 2 center? They also lost Bertuzzi, Orlov, and Hall. JVR, Lucic, Shattenkirk, Geeky, just some veteran pieces. Boston could actually take that step back, which we've been kind of expecting to happen over the years. More NHL talk on another day. That's it. We'll talk from a fantasy standpoint. We've got MLB picks here next to wrap up Mean Streets. Welcome back in. One pick here for you. It's the Padres over 4.5 runs. Then the team total here, minus 107 over at Unibet. I think DK's hanging around minus 110. Patrick Sandoval on the bump for the Halos. He's coughed up at least 7 hits in 5 of his last 6 starts, and he's allowed 20 runs over his past 5 outings. He's really struggling with his command. 3.57 walks per 9. He's only striking out 7.25 batters per 9 innings. The Padres, they've been up and down this season, much better against southpaws than righties. They rank 11th in WOBA and 8th in WRC plus against left-handed pitching. In the last 2 weeks, they're 6th in overall WOBA, 7th in WRC plus, and 3rd in runs. They've had 18 runs through the first 2 games of this series with the Halos. And if you're looking for a prop, Meaney Machado, taking a look at these 2 guys here for the Padres. Meaney Machado over 1.5 total bases. He's got a team high 342 average against lefties, also rocking a solid 392 WOBA and 151 WRC plus. 5 hits for the first 2 games of this series. He's got 15 total bases over his last 4 games, so his form is solid and it's a good matchup. And then Tatis Jr. leads the Padres in WOBA and WRC plus against lefties, and he also leads the Padres in homers and total bases against left-handed pitching as well. Over 1.5 total bases, 105, plus 105 for Tatis Jr. and plus 125 for Meaney Machado. Padres win on the run line, and I think they'll score 5 runs. Good luck around the diamond. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Cheers.